Hello and welcome to the podcast. This is Rich Harsha, as usual, and I have a special guest with me today, Patrick Fingles, CEO and founder of Leap. Also, previous to that, the CEO and founder of New Look. I think most people know him. He speaks a lot of the conferences that I speak at. And if I'm not mistaken, Patrick, I've had you on the podcast, but it's been a couple of years. Does that sound right to you?
Yeah, I think it was 2022.
Okay, it's been a few years. Well, hey, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me here today. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Okay, so you're kind of an interesting guy because you've got two things happening here. You probably have more than two things, but two things that are relevant to this conversation. One is you built a company that was significant, New Look. I think you sold it. How long ago did you sell that thing?
I sold that in 2023. It's our 20-year anniversary.
Okay. Hey, we've reached 20 years, and by the way, I'm out of here.
It's a good time.
Okay, so you built that company, which I think is interesting. I want to hear some of the things that you learned and the growth and all of that about New Look, but also during that period of time, if I've got the story right, and I'm pretty sure I do, you looked at the software that you were using to manage certain elements of the business, and you thought this isn't really working. We can do better, and that's where Leap came from. It like grew. It's funny how many of these softwares that service this industry came from guys like you who said, "Hey, this is not working. Let's do it better."
Yeah, they say like there's a quote that says the best softwares are built out of need,
Yeah, can
So
you imagine a software that some knucklehead private equity venture capital nerd or something like that is like, "Hey, what if we built a software to do this?" That would just be a disaster.
yeah, it just takes a lot longer. It doesn't hit the ground running like, these softwares like that are coming in our industry that are built by these experts that have a pain in their business and they're looking for a solution. So, that's the same thing as our story. I built it internally, no intention of spinning it out, but it was a really good software and it was a really great product and I was proud of it. And our competitors saw it and they asked about it. And, I networked with them and they said, "Can we have it?" And they did. And it was kind of just happenstance. It wasn't purpose built to sell. It was purpose built to change the way we did business as a
Well,
company.
I want to dive into that, but first, if it's okay with you, let's talk about New Look, how that started, your experience in the industry. Like I don't know you well enough to say that you're like on that Mount Rushmore of home improvement guys. Like I put Brian Elias up there and a couple
Mm.
other guys. Uh, but you definitely have been around. You've accomplished tremendous things. And I'd like to know your story a little bit. Tell me how
Yeah.
you got into the business, how you built it up. And I'd really like to hear some of the face punches that you took and some of the things you did to overcome those.
Yeah, so we did like there's two things I always say, like I left my mark on this industry in two ways. There's only two things that I did that was pretty unique. So first and foremost, we started in tw 2003 and we started selling windows. I would literally canvas and then I would go back, I'd schedule those appointments and I would literally canvas like what my hat on backwards in like a t-shirt and then I'd come back the next day with like a suit and hope that they didn't recognize that I was also the canvasser because I wanted my business to look and feel bigger than it was and I didn't want them to think it was a one person show because then they're not going to give me their $15,000, right? So I've always,
I've heard a variation of that story where the two, young owners go out and canvas all day and then hand their leads to the other guy and they show up in suits and close them. So kind of that same
so we
vibe.
did we did that too because I did have a partner. His name is Tom, and he'll laugh at this, but he wasn't a good salesman. So I would run his leads, and he would run mine, but he would pitch miss. So then we just started saying, "All right, you're just going to run all the leads." So I would run my leads, and I would run his leads. And then, so that's how I ended up canvassing and selling my own leads. But we started as a we started at that, and that was my. Prior to that, I worked at a very large company. It's still in business today. And I'm very good friends with the CEO of that company. It's Adam Champagne. He's the CEO of Home Fix Custom Remodeling, and they're a large company. And I worked for them for about 2 years or so. And, I kind of saw not how the business worked, like not trying to rip them off, but it was my first kind of entry into this industry and it changed my life, man, like it does for a lot of people. Prior to that I was a courier. I made $653 after taxes every 2 weeks. I started selling windows for Home Fix, and I was getting $2,500 bricks every single week. So I went from making $36,000 a year to making $175,000 a year. I was 22 years old, and it was an awesome experience for me. And
Like crack.
yeah, man, I just wanted to parlay that. So I just, I had a friend and he was like, man, we should start our own business. We should start our own business. We should start our own business. And like, he warmed me down a little bit. I was like, all right, let's do it. So, we went out and we incorporated, we started our own business. We ran out of the back of his house, which was 405 Shady Nook Road in Catonsville. We
What
canvassed
state
on
is that?
doors. What'd you say?
What state is that?
No, yeah, we were running it right out of Catonsville, Maryland, and it was just a little stucco rambler, and that was it. So we started knocking on doors. We were selling windows because that's what we sold at the other company, and we just kind of mirrored that company. We used the All Side at the time, and we used them for installation. So all we had to do was generate leads and sell. And we tried to charge double, 50% margins. And it was a very simple business model. It was easy to be successful. We sold $86,000 in sales our very first month.
How long did it
Um,
take
you
you to hit
know,
a million in sales in a year? It must have been the first year or two then.
Oh yeah, well we did. I think we did 2.8 million our first year. Like we
Wow.
were we were good canvassers, we were hard workers, and I was a great salesperson. Man, I had a really high closing percentage. And the good thing that we did is from day one, man, our margin was always 50%. I mean, it was just good habits that I had learned from the other company that I worked for. So if Allside was going to install that job for 5 grand, we sold it for 10. And like I did not like there was a lot of times when somebody said, we'll do it for 7. And there was times it was just me and my partner. It was times when we'd be like, hey man, three's better than nothing. But we remained disciplined. I mean, we watched our GP real close. I don't know why. I'm thankful that we did. Like, I got to give young Patrick Fingles a high five for that. This is 23 years ago. I was 25 years old, but for some reason, I remember my old mentor at Home Fix. His name was John. He just told me how important it was to like maintain your convictions and when you're selling and like don't be a price junkie and like just teach them the value of the product. So we continued to do that and it was super successful. Like I said, I think we did like 2.5 million our very first year, and we were super lean business. I mean, we made a lot of money.
So give me an idea of some of the problems that you ran into as the business growed. Was there a certain period where it was hard because you didn't have the right systems or anything like that?
Yeah, well, the hardest thing in scaling was like trying to hire other guys, like trying to hire another. Like I knew how to canvas, I knew how to sell. And Tom was a good businessman. Like he was a really good like bookkeeper and accounting. And then we were using Allside. Allside was getting really expensive. Sorry, Allside, I love you guys as a partner, but at the time they were getting really expensive. So, Tom was like, I'm going to go out and find us some installers, and he did that, and we did that well. The hard part was trying to replicate myself and other salespeople and grow that canvassing team. Like we were going to high school, like trying to recruit all of our friends. Some of them worked for a little bit, some of them worked none.
Yeah.
And it took a while. And then, the other hard part was management and trying to get that management thing stood up. And just trying to grow and scale and figure that out. And that we spent probably from 2003 to 2006 really trying to just perfect that. And by the time we get to like 2008, we got like 20, probably 30 or 40 employees, all canvassers and sales reps, and we were doing about 8 or 9 million at that point in time. And then 2008 hit, and everything just went to crap. And we went from 8 million to 3 million overnight. So, I didn't do anything. Nothing I did at that point in time was new or unique. We hadn't done anything monumental, right? At that point in time. This is, I think, the first time that, I really started acting like a business owner. And it was, we had to make a decision about what we were going to do, whether we were going to close the company or whatever, because window leads just stopped coming in. It was a very hard time. And there were bigger window companies out there that like, would kind of dominated our space. I mean, we were going up against Window Worlds and Window Nation and Anderson and it was tough when all the window leads dried up. And so prior to that, we used to throw roof leads in the trash because we looked at roof leads at that time. Roofs were perceived as like like that wasn't a product that you could double your margin on. It was a price-based sale, right? Like roofers were like felt like it was kind of like, oh, you like it's low margin, you're competing on price. And again, we wanted to stay away from that. And so it was funny, I always tell this story. I went into ABC and I talked to this guy Jerry, and I said, Jerry, listen, show me your kits. Like, we had these great window and siding kits, man. Like the window had like the heat lamp and like, I mean, I don't know if you've ever seen these things,
Oh
but
yeah.
you could really create a story on siding, dude. We had these little like Freon cans and little Louisville sluggers for Crane, and we would show like insulated siding versus non-insulated siding. I mean, it was a really good sales story, and you just couldn't get that there was nothing for roofing. So like we went to work and I was like, man, I need to build good, better, best sales process. This is the process we run on. It's like good, better, best. Like we got this window, we got this window. We always sell the best, but like we wanted to give them the feeling of options. Because
Yep.
if you give a homeowner optionality, then it helps them make a decision in a one call close environment. If you only give them out and give them one product and one price, well, hey, we want to shop around, we want to see more options. So we wanted to always give the feeling of optionality. And so we created a roofing kit. And like I did that in partnership with ABC, and I had done that in partnership with Owens Corning. Actually, at the time, sorry, it was actually Certainteed. It was Tim Seidel from Saint Gobain Certainteed or whatever, and they didn't have any kits. They had like a trifold, and they had like those boards. So we didn't have like roofing demonstration kits. And they were like, well, so we just started. I was like, tell me how you make a roofing shingle. And they're like, well, you start with a fiberglass mat. And I was like, and they said, or you can start with like a felt mat or a paper mat. And I was like, great. Can I get two samples of those mats? And they were like, yeah, okay. And they got me samples of the mat. And they were like, then you start with like asphalt. I was like, how would I show that? They're like, we can make pucks. And I was like, great. We got asphalt pucks. And then we got granulars, copper embedded granulars versus non-copper embedded granulars. So like your roof doesn't streak, or like streak prevention. And so like we just did that. We showed CDX plywood versus like laminate plywood, right? And so we built these whole kits. I mean, I remember building them in the back of ABC and putting them all together. And when we went to Markley Enterprise and we had like all the foam cutouts made, and the roof kit was born. And then we started going into these houses and we started doing good, better, best on roofing. And we were showing them like you can use OSB, or you can use like FRT, or you can use CDX, half-inch plywood. And, we went right down and we built the roof from the ground up, and people just started saying yes. And all of a sudden we were unstoppable. And the business grew in 2008, like we went from 8 million down to 3 million. Then in 2009, we got a roofing game together. And then we scaled by 2016. We were $40 million operating in 5 states, and 80% of our jobs were roofing sales. And we were like a really predominant roofing player. And by that time, the kits had become kind of like, I didn't have any type of like patent on them or anything. And so they had become like, more mainstream. And I think kits are out there now. So Jerry from ABC Supply will tell you every time I see him, he's like, you changed the game, man. He was like, there were no roofing kits before that. He's like, these big guys didn't come in and like sell roofing like you did. And now you have these large kind of enterprise roofing companies that do these one call close, very high margins. And so that was like, our forte into roofing. So I'm not trying to like be vain or claim that or anything, but that was a really important part of our story and success.
So this is a very education-based selling process.
Correct, correct. So very education based, like product driven selling process. So then, the next chapter is like, okay, so I'm sitting there, and so we were this canvas based company. We wanted to grow, so we wanted to go on like television, we wanted to go on radio, and so I kept looking at the landscape, and I was like, man, what can I say that's like different? And so I started watching all these TV ads. And everything everybody said was the same thing that I could say. It didn't matter whether you had been in business for 20 years or whether you had been in business for 1 year. When you watch a roofing ad, it's like licensed, insured, Better Business Bureau, lifetime warranty, bonded. Right now, buy one, get one free, or save 30% off, or
Yep.
get free gutters. It's like it was the same thing. And it was like this market share. And I was like, man, I need some individuality. So I started like thinking about like what would disrupt and like what would cut through the mustard. And we were always going up, and there was always this notion for homeowners that they wanted to get three estimates. And it always like it drove me crazy that homeowners would want to get three estimates. I mean, I understood that they needed to because like you can't trust a contractor as far as you can throw them, right? And that's being one, right? But like, you don't like I couldn't, there's no other place that you want to do something three times. Like, think about every purchase that you make. Like, I'm going to go to Best Buy. We're going to get a new TV. Do you hope that you have to go to three different stores?
No, of course not.
Like it's like is can you think of anything else where you want to have to do it three times? Like it's like listen, it's just this. And so it's like it's service providers. Like maybe if you're going to get a will done, you might want to talk to two different attorneys or three different attorneys. Yeah, it's service providers because they like lie. And so like we were looking for a way to like what can we say? How can we start to break that notion down? Because I'll give you a closing. This is the best close for I want to get other estimates. This is the best close that you'll ever get. So I want to get other estimates is like a very common objection, right? So you're sitting in the house, they say, I want to get other estimates. And I'd say, okay, how many estimates do you want to get? And they'd say probably like two more. Be like, okay, you want to get three estimates? If you get all three estimates and you hate all three of us, you hate us all, none of us are any good, which one of us would you hire? And what do the people say? They say, well, I wouldn't
Um,
hire any of you. And I say, well, what would you do? And they'd say, well, I guess I get another estimate. And I said, okay. And if you love that person, what would you do? And they'd say, I guess I'd hire them. And I'd say, well, then it doesn't have anything to do with the number of estimates you get. It has everything to do with find somebody that you love so you can hire them, right? And I said, so why three? I was like, lucky enough for you, you don't have to wait till the fourth estimate. If the first person you love, and you can hire them and you can save yourself the time and move on with your life. So it was like this idea of like this number three had become like an odds thing. If I get three estimate, odds are I'll like one of them enough. I'll trust one of them enough to hire them. But the
no,
reality of it is like, no, I'm not going to hire them if I don't like them and trust them. I'll keep going. So the fact that you would keep going beyond three kind of opened my mind up to, well, then you could do it at one. You could do it less than three too, right? Three wasn't this magical number. It just represented a big enough sample size.
yeah,
So then I was like, okay, so what it like, so this was a time when like the internet was kind of exploding in 2012 and like, people really moving to like e-commerce shopping. And I remember like in the early days of Amazon, people would say like, there's no way like you can still buy some things online, but you'll never buy clothes online. Like you got to try them on. You'll never buy a TV online. You'll never buy speakers online because you got to hear them. Nobody will ever buy a car online. Okay, maybe they'll buy a new car, but they'll never buy a used car online. And like, so there was like this whole notion around like this was all happening. And meanwhile, the old home improvements, it's a good old three estimates just chugging along. And like, we're going to handwrite them and give them to you and wait for your call. Right. And it was like everything else, like the whole way we're buying things is changing around me. And I'm like, man, we got to do something about this. And so, I was like, if I think the reason that people like, A, you have to be prepared. When you get on site, you have to be prepared to give them their ice. Like you want to make it a transaction. I'm not here to sell you a roof. I'm here for you to buy a roof. And like that became our whole thing. Like we're the roofing store. Like I envision like a place where the husband would be like, hey, hon, I'm leaving the office. You need anything? She's like, no, I don't need. Oh, you know what? Would you mind stopping and getting a gallon of milk? Yeah, I'll stop. Oh, you know what? I got to stop anyway and buy the roof.
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna stop and buy the roof, and then I'll stop and get the milk. I'll see you at 6:30. Like I like wanted it to be like that experience. So in order for my guys to walk into a house and create a buying experience instead of a selling or an estimating experience, I had to give them a solution to support that. Because like yes, when you buy something quickly, like it's got to be buttoned up, it's got to be quick, it's got to be informative, it's got to be trustworthy, it's got to be detailed. And technology was at the forefront of that. So this is the second thing we did. One, we had the kits, so we had the product story. Number two, we needed to button up the commerce side of it. We wanted to give them line by line pricing. We called it total price transparency. We wanted to give them 3D renderings, right? We wanted to give them 4 to 5 estimates on different products. So they had a price range. We wanted to give them multiple ways to pay for it with financing options and payments. And like, so that became that commerce side of things. And that's Leap. I didn't build it with the intention of spinning it out. I built it with the intention of creating this kind of parallel. So now it's this shopping experience, this kind of in-home shopping, assisted shopping experience is what we tried to create. And that's what we advertised. I went on the television, I would take pictures of the software, and I was always funny. I would always make these jokes. I'd be like, how come every time you get an estimate from a contractor, it ends in zeros? 12,000, 14,000, 14,300. How come it's never $11,969.79? Because they're ballparking. That's why. At New Look, we're completely different. We use software and give you line by line pricing. So you know exactly what you're paying for. So we did all these spoof commercials, like somebody would push the shopping cart off up at to the register, and like the checkout clerk would look at it and be like, how about 300 bucks? Yes, and he'd be
Yeah.
like, that's not the experience. At New Look, we use line by line pricing. And so we started doing that. And so we took that experience of like, we're not going to sell you, but we're going to create a store environment, and that's where the software was built. And those are like my kind of two homages, I think, to the industry, or my two biggest contributions to the industry is the innovation of the roofing kit, as well as the development of the commerce solution for for an in-home shopping experience.
Well, the good news is you weren't able to monetize the wide adaptation of the roofing kit, but you are able to monetize the wide adaptation of the software package. So let's. I was going to say let's shift gears. I think the gear's already been shifted, but let's talk a little bit more about Leap. So dive into that. I heard you say total price transparency, 3D rendering, giving multiple as many as five or six options. Kind of walk us through what that product is doing.
Yeah. So it was like it was an evolution the other crisis that we kind of faced at the time is as we started to see scale. Like I remember my first, we actually won a Better Business Bureau Torch Award, and I remember my speech for that. And I said I remember my first bad review. Like, I remember my first like BBB like complaint. It wasn't a review, it was my first like BBB complaint. I remember calling like the BBB and try to have it taken down because like I didn't want reputation management became very important to me. And so like we were moving really fast, we were selling high, we were creating this transparency and we weren't really delivering it. So the other side of that coin was kind of like operations. By the way, at this time we had scaled to 50, 60 sales reps. I mean, we used to say hire them in classes, train them in masses, kick them in asses, right? And so like, I mean, that you've heard that, right? So like we were training like every month we had 15, 20 new recruits. We were training and we were flying them in, putting them in hotels, doing 2 week trainings, then sending them out to the world to sell roofing. And these were bartenders. They weren't like roofing experts, right? I mean, they're bartenders, servers, teachers, real estate, whatever. And so like the product evolved. The original concept of the product was to be able to come in, to be able to take measurements that are static, because like this window in my office right here, that window right there. Okay, that window is a double hung window, and it's 60 by 40, right? So it's 100 United inches. Um, there's one set of measurements for it. It's 60 by 40.
Yep.
There's 5,000 different windows I could put in there with a variety of pricing, right? It can have grids, it could have prairie grids, it could have diamond grids, it could be interior lamination, exterior lamination, single lock, double pane, triple pane, low E, low E plus argon, right? I mean, there's like 1,000 things. So the first thing that we did was we wanted to give, the pricing allowed us to take a singular measure and put it into a system, and that measure would extract against every pricing SKU that existed. And then a sales rep could simply swipe back and forth and you could create like these packages. So again, good, better, best. People need options. I would never go to a store that only sold one pair of pants. And the likelihood of me being able to buy a pair of pants there gets really small. So we need to go to a store that has multiple pairs of pants. That way I can have a greater success of not having to go a second store, right? And that's what we were
Yep.
trying to solve for. So that was like the first thing that it did. Ready? Then the second thing it did was like, okay, we wanted to quickly be able to move to a beautiful proposal or a contract. And we needed that information to be like hyper detailed, right? Like Here's your good pricing, here's your better pricing, here's your best pricing, here's your finance options, all kind of calculated and extracted. So it became this kind of like in Excel, you would refer to it like within like an if-then formula, right? So it's like, if this true, then this has to happen. And then the third thing that we wanted to do is we needed the commerce side of things like super quickly. So big fan of financing. I always tell everybody, I'm like, offer financing. I don't have anything for these banks, but like offer financing because even if somebody's like super wealthy and the prospect has like a Rolls Royce sitting out front, that still does not mean that they have $12,000. Not every single person on the planet can write you a check that will not bounce for $12,000, but every single person can fill out a credit app. Doesn't mean they'll get approved, but they can at least fill it out. And we had a golden rule. Contract was not a sale unless it was accompanied by a credit app or it was accompanied by a check or credit card. Right? So like it had to have one. And like as for me as a young salesperson, I was like, man, just too many times I threw the credit app to the side because I thought these people had the cash. And then in the end, they didn't have the cash. So I always wanted to create that. So we created that system too. So it was this way to give really quick multiple estimates in a really nice buttoned up proposal that they could sign and the ability to be able to pay for it. And like all those things were like squished together in one thing. And then the last thing it did is, we had like this kind of resource library that made it really accessible for us to make sure they had the right brochures, our installation process, our company story, right? Like all that, everything that a sales rep needed was in that iPad. It was their storefront. And it had every option that that homeowner could want, every way to pay for it, and every resource that was available. Comer would ask a question about, well, I really want to talk to somebody about whether or not, we should do the gutters. And we'd have a video loaded in there. Here you go, industry expert talking about whether you should do the gutters or not, right? And like so, it just became this kind of a catch-all for that. And that's what really that was the original thesis. Since then, it's grown a lot, and it does a lot of other things. But that was like the core value of it.
So is the sales training that goes along with this software, here's what I'm trying to say. You need to adapt your sales presentation to this software, not the other way around.
No, Bill Gates has a great quote. It says, "Great software will enhance an already efficient process." So, like, if you have a sales process, you lay a software over top of that and it already becomes efficient. So, like, my guys had pitch books and binders, they had contracts that were trifolds. Like, we were relatively buttoned up. The software just amplified it all. So, like,
Well,
yeah, I
so
mean, I think most people are coming up with an estimate. Most people are giving a proposal or contract. Most people are accepting payment, and most people are doing some sort of
yeah,
company
but
story.
here's what most people are not doing though. They're not necessarily doing a good, better, best. They're not giving five different estimates on the same job. They're
Oh
not
yeah.
introducing financing early in the process because you know that it's going to be baked into your thing. So I guess that's what I mean by it kind of dictates how your sales process goes. Like this, you're talking about software, and what I'm hearing is sales process.
Yeah.
Because what you really did is you engineered the perfect sales process, and then you said, "Well, now I need the infrastructure to support that."
Correct. I think that's right. I think that the thing is like, and not the shameless plug to make sure I don't scare people away. Like, if you give one estimate and you only sell one product, you can either handwrite that down on something, you can give people a vague round number, or you can give them line by line item pricing on that labor and material. And I know like some of my big like one call close enterprise company be like, we don't give line by line pricing. No, you don't give line by line pricing on labor and material because you don't have the system to be able to do it. If your price is $27,000, I don't care if your margin's 80% and you're smoking people, the system will take that, break that all down, and give you that line by line pricing. And it helps people to understand instead of just looking at a number of $17,000 for their project, they're seeing it total up 17,000. So we did it. We wanted the ability to do it over multiple packages. I always encourage multiple packages, but some of the largest companies in the world do not sell multiple packages. Like some of the largest home improvement companies that, are our customers, they offer one product line and that's what they do. So
Okay. Well,
it's
those guys are big enough.
my thought in theory is that, but like, yes, the system has the ability to help you offer that one package in a very transparent, accurate way, or grow into multiple packages, which I'm a fan of because I think it gives the homeowner the feeling of choice. And it doesn't have to be all or nothing. Like, not everything was two packages. Like, we got to a place where we only sold one underlayment, but we sold two different shingles, or like, like we never sold, OSB plywood, right? We always sold CDX plywood, but we showed them, right?
Well, I'm going
We
to go
said, yeah,
back to what I said because
yeah.
I, I, I think I've reverse engineered this. You could take somebody who was not particularly well versed in sales, and you could say, here's how our software works. And if they just understand how the software works and they follow the system of the software, they're going to automatically be a good salesperson because your product has engineered, I'm going to call it, I may be overstating it, but I'm going to say the perfect sales pitch. Look at all these different elements that you're automatically engineering into the sales process by virtue of I'm just following the software. If I follow the software, those elements are automatically included. So look, I'm not dumping on sales training. Obviously, that's good, and everybody should,
I know, like our
knock
sales
yourself
training
out.
went from 2 weeks to a single week. Like there was no there was a lot less product training. Like we taught our guys, instead of learning how to measure and how to price and how to write a contract and how to write a proposal and how to fill out a credit application, we took our guys and we told them how to be like customer stewards and like how to close, how to do a good warm up, how to create connection in the house. We taught them about shingles. We taught them about
So
the products and windows and so
you had
forth. So
55 sales reps at your peak, I believe I heard you say. Is that right?
correct.
What was the closing ratio across the board on those?
We were a 40% closer.
Okay. And look, I'm not trying to argue with you. It's your thing, but I don't know that you necessarily thought of it this way. You engineered the perfect sales process. You could take a person that is not personable, let's say an analytic person who is usually terrible at sales, and say, here, just follow this order of operations. I'm not even going to
Yeah,
call it a system, an order of operations. And what you're delivering to the homeowner is what they actually need to be hearing.
yeah,
Because you
yeah,
look at a lot of sales training and it's like, oh, let's focus on asking a lot of questions. And you dive into the data with products like Rilla. And by the way, Rilla, Zero, those things are amazing. I love them. I fully recommend them. But they're going to get you into a lot of analytics. They're like, oh, the best salespeople talk only 38% of the time versus bad
yeah,
salespeople talk 60% of the time. Well, if you're saying the right things like, hey, let me give you a line by line breakdown of this. Let me show you five different options for this. Let me help you understand how you can get this done on monthly payments of $275. I
yeah,
asked you that question, what your close rate was, fully fully anticipating you were going to start that number with a four.
yeah, yeah. We and I'm not arguing. No, that's exactly what we did. We wanted to create. I remember we had this training class. It was high turnover, and so we had this training class. And let me tell you how Leap, just a testament to what you just said. The way that Leap hit the open market, the reason we started selling it outward was because I was getting phone calls from my competitors about my sales reps that had turned over and went to their businesses and couldn't sell for them
Yeah, because they had to be
because
a
they didn't
salesman
have,
over there.
they didn't know and so like I was getting calls from like our earliest customers are my direct competitors in Maryland, New Jersey, Delaware, Pennsylvania, right? Like we sold all those guys, right? And it was like they called and they were like, "Hey, I just hired one of your like Pat, man, I just hired one of your guys, man. He said you guys got some software. This guy didn't even know how to measure a roof. What's going on?" You know? And I was like, "Oh yeah." And I was like, and they were like, "Well, what is it?" And I was like, "Well, we built it. I don't know. We call it Estimate. At the time, we called it Estimate." And the reason that the company is called Leap is because it represents the jump that a company has to make. It represents the transition. You know, this isn't like, hey, it's a little software we're going to add, it's going to fix everything. It's what I said. You know, a great software enhances a good process. So, like, if you don't have good process and you take great software and you put it over shit process, you end up with a customer that gets no value out of the software they just purchased. So, yeah, they're like the tail wags the dog or one
But
hand washes
you're,
the other, you know?
I'll bet the following is true. I don't know anything about this, but I'm my superpower is connecting dots, and I just connected these dots based on what you just said. I'll bet there's been companies that have bought your software who have crap processes and who legitimately suck at the thing, roofing, and within a month or two, they quit using your product because
Oh,
it
yeah.
doesn't work with their crap process.
Yeah. The other thing is, you know what our brand values are? We won't let our customers make the mistake of saying no. Our products are challenging at first, but rewarding for whatever. You can't afford not to have it. And the reason our brand values were that is because in the early days, if people wanted to emulate what we were doing, but they actually didn't want to do the work on the inside. They wanted to buy the software, pay $80 per month per user for it, and like it's gonna like, you know, then they don't need to do anything. It was like, no, you have to align, you know, you have to align, you have to align kind of your processes and systems. So it's kind of like this transition. Now, a lot of people do have those processes and don't have the softwares. Those are the greatest success stories.
Yeah,
Like, yeah,
those
we're
guys are going
already,
to come in
those
five
guys are going to come
seconds.
in, lay it over. Other people are going to come in, they don't have the process, but they want it. They buy our software and they're going to do both at the same time. They're committed to it and they've had tremendous success. And I have those case studies too. And then I have the one that you just mentioned, which are the people that come in, don't have the process, think the software is going to solve it, and they don't, and then they cancel. And that's exactly right. We call it churn. So
Yeah,
it's
this
like
is this
they
is
turn
not a
over.
software. I mean, it is a software, obviously, but it's not a software. It's a sales. It's a perfected sales order of operations. And the reason I keep coming back to this and I keep saying it over and over again is because I want the audience on this podcast to hear me. This is not an opportunity to be more efficient with software because that is going to be the pitch for a lot of softwares, and it's a good pitch. I'm not saying that that's a bad pitch. But this is not, hey, you're going to become more efficient with this. This is going to transform fundamentally the way that you approach the customer. And it's going to either force you to improve the way that you do business, or it's going to take, like you said, Patrick, a great business that's already operating fundamentally this way, and it's going to give, a software that's going to overlay on that. But this, I'll bet you anything. Again, 40%. That's amazing, by the way. So I bet what that really means is your lowest producing guys were at 30, your average guys were at 40, and your top guys were at 50.
Yeah. Yeah. We had
And
50 and 60% closers. Yeah.
and you can across the board in this industry, if you want to know what the average is, all you got to do is take 10 points off of all those. The average in the industry is going to be the crappy guys are doing 20%, the average guys are doing 30%, and the killers are doing 40%. So you take this, you overlay it, you build your business so that it works with this, and you have an automatic 10-point conversion ratio improvement. I'm not saying that you're claiming that or that you would claim that or you want to claim that, but it's true.
I would 100%. First of all, I claim it. And second of all, I have testimonials to support it. And I'm talking about some of the largest companies in the world that sell home improvements or use our product. And they will test that we were a very large part of their growth over the last decade.
Here,
So
I'll say it even.
I've watched companies, not only mine, but I've watched companies where they were better than I know. I seem smart and put together, but you know, I sold it to BJ at West Shore. They had 13 users. Obviously, anybody that knows West Shore knows they have 800, right? So it's like I watched people fly right by me, right? And so you know, using this technology. Now I'm definitely not going to take all the credit for those people's success, but those same people will give us testimonial that are on our website, and they're like, "Hey, we couldn't have done it without you. Like it helped us scale tremendously because it made our sales processes repeatable, defined, you know, and we were able to just bring in people. I mean, it's hard when you have to the people that you have to hire have to know math. Like I worked with, believe it or not, I mean, measuring a gable, you know, width, one half width times height, right? Like, you know, that's half width times height. That's how you measure a triangle, right? But it's like That seems easy enough, but it's hard to teach somebody to do that. It's hard to teach somebody to price that. So you spend a lot of time doing that. And like we always just there's all these scenarios where it's like, man, I'd hire some guy. He's a bartender. He comes in, he sold his first deal. He closed at 27,000. I mean, he's calling me. I have to talk to him from the time he gets from Bowie all the way back to his house. It's 45 minutes. He's like so pumped up, man. He goes in, his job comes in, man. It's like, oh my God, I made $2,700 last night. I can't believe this. It's awesome. And then I'm like, hey, man, I got to sit down with you because you undersold that job by $10,000. You're getting zero. And like, so it's like that happens. It's called a clawback or a BM below minimums. Like it's a commission clawback. And like, that just sucks all the wind out of the room. And like, so we were so tired of that. So like, it helped in so many, there's so many little intricate layers in which this thing just protected us. You know that like on average, it's like 15% of jobs that are sold are missold to some degree, meaning underbid accidentally or intentionally, but blamed on accidentally. A customer that uses our sales tool averages 99.9% accuracy on bidding. Like it's like what a great experience for like a salesperson,
Well, think
and
about
that
this,
way they can
Patrick.
always count on their commission.
When you guys started taking off, it's when you went on TV, and TV is a big part of it, but TV is just a medium to deliver a message. And the message that you were delivering is why would you take an estimated price? Here's a shopping cart full of groceries. Let's eyeball it. It's $300. No, it's not $300. It's $287.47. You have now given that sales pitch to every one of your customers automatically baked in, built in. They don't have to be good at sales. They don't have to understand the value of that pitch. They just have to know, they just have to look at the software and do what it says.
Yeah.
And they
Well, and think of the
automatically
thing.
have the best sales pitch that you ever had that built a $40 million company. It's built in.
Yeah, think of it like just think of a homeowner, man. Just embody the homeowner, man. Imagine a contractor that comes down that like sits at your table and just like spins that iPad around and just everything's digitized, everything's broken out. There's no promises, there's no unwritten words, there's
Yeah.
no, yeah, we're going to do that. I mean, everything is laid out. Every question they ask you, the guy's got an answer for, he's got a video for, he's got it in black and white. And you just give them the utility tool like it's a Swiss Army knife. And it's just like I said, we didn't want to sell people. We wanted them to buy from us. And like, and it's what really worked for us, Rich, because I know you guys spent a lot of time like on marketing. What really worked for us is if you go look at marketing for home improvements, I want you to take all the marketing that you can find, put it up on a wall and be like, how do you connect that to the sales process? Because the best marketing connects to the sales process. And so, like when you look at marketing, I mean, take Valpaks, pin them up to the wall. How do you connect that to the sales process when the only thing you see is buy one, get one? It's like, yeah, so now the sales process is buy one, get one, but everybody's saying that. So, what really started to work for us is when we started talking about there's a better way to roof. And that's what we said. That was our slogan. There's a better way to roof.
Yeah. Well, you're
And
preaching to
so,
the
like, when we
choir
started
now.
talking about there's a better way to roof, like, people started looking at it and he started to, like, think about it. Beginning, everything I talked about was the fact that you get these three estimates and we just poked fun at it. I literally had the same guy come out. He was like an extra and he held like three clipboards. And one was like 20,000, one was 10,000, and one was 15,000. And he's like sitting there going like this, making a stupid face. And it's like a white screen. And you can look at these, they're on YouTube. And I'd be like, how does this help you make an informed decision? Which one? You going to go with the one in the middle? Or maybe you go with door number three, this goofball over here. I'm like, how does three random prices with no details help you make an informed decision? I mean, it's like that's like two doctors. One says, I want to treat it. The other one says, I think we should let it go. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
look, I need more detail than that. So it was like the devil's in the detail. There's a better way to roof. There's a smarter way to roof. Total price transparency, line by line pricing, 3D visualizers, everything, Facebook, everything became about this better way to roof. And when and our guys would go out and they'd say, I don't know if you know, but we're different than most. And it's like, I understand that you're going to get multiple estimates, but our goal is for you not to have to do that. Our
Yeah.
goal is for you to be able to make a purchase, not be sold something. So I'm not here to sell you anything, but I am a store and I'd love for you to buy something. And that's what we
So
would say. We're the roofing store. I wanted to try to change the name to the roofing store, but it was just too. We had brand. It was like too much work. I don't know. We just opted not to do it. But
So what's the best way for people to find out about Leap? Can they get a demo on your website or something?
yeah, I mean, look, you can find it a thousand different ways. We have a free trial. And listen, we talked a lot about the point of sale tool, just a quick overview. So we have what we call Sales Pro. So when you go on our website, you'll kind of see these things. And then we have Leap CRM. We actually acquired them. They were a partner of ours because we wanted to give some of our customers that wanted it the full breadth of the product, the full suite. Because most people are going to use the CRM with our point of sales tool. However, our point is we build our philosophy is we build bridges, not walls. So the vast majority of the people that use our sales tool, some of them use our CRM, but not all of them, and we integrate with all those partners I just named. So again, that's that build bridges, not walls philosophy. So you can go to Leap to Digital, but you can search Leap. We buy the keyword Leap Software. Is fine.
Okay.
You can find us on LinkedIn at Leap and or Facebook. We have free trial versions of our products, and you can download them and take a test spin. And they should definitely check it out. And some of the other things I said, I never want to be an advertiser. I never want to be a sponsor. I always like this industry's been fantastic to me. And I would do anything for it. And I love contractors. I feel very much one of them, and I want to make sure I never cross that line to where I care more about selling my software than I care about what's best for contractors. And so, I am a big advocate for all contractors, big and small, whether you're trying to grow or scale, whether you're a one call closer or not one call closer. It's not a one size fits all model. But I believe that we can all learn things from one another and stuff. So I appreciate the forum and the opportunity to talk to people. If anybody wants me, they can hit me up on LinkedIn. I'm always happy to network and chat. And, I've learned a tremendous amount. I've been very fortunate to grow and scale that business and have that exposure. It started at Home Fix, and then I had my own 20 years at New Look. And now this new experience, getting to work with so many contractors and getting to partner with all these big companies and see how they do it. I've just learned a tremendous amount. And I think that's all culminated in, this gray beard and this wisdom that I have about this industry. So I love it. I love home improvements, and I'm a consumer too. I never forget your consumer roots, right? I always say people like I'm standing on a stage and I'm talking to 100 contractors that said, "Who delights? What? Raise your hand if you think you delight your customers." And then I say, "All right, now as homeowners, put your hand up if you were delighted by the last contractor you hired." And I'm like, "Oh, so none of the bad contractors are in this room. Like we're all." So it's like, contracting has a long way to go. 8 out of 10 homeowners would not recommend or reuse their contractor. 8 out of 10.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? So we got a long way to go. We got to fix it, right? So, I think transparency and simplicity, it's got to change. The number one hardest part about completing any home improvement project is finding someone to do it. That would be like the number one hardest part about getting a gallon of milk is finding a store that has it. It's like we want to be like everybody's got it. Like you can get it from the gas station, the highs, the Wawa, whatever region you're in, right? The grocery store. So anyway,
All
long
right,
time.
man.
Thanks for giving me the forum.
Yeah, thanks for being on here. Look forward to seeing you at some of the conferences coming up, and we'll have you back on the podcast again for sure. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.